I'm Sandra Blackman. I am the Director of the Health Services Strategy and Workforce Partnerships with the New Jersey Council of County Colleges. And I'm so happy to have my co-host today, Chrissy Butius. So Chrissy, do you want to?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us. I see so many familiar faces and names that are participating today. I'm Chrissy Butius. I'm the Chief Government Affairs Officer at NJBIA. My previous background was actually working in the home care and hospice industry, heading up that association, and still have the pleasure of working on a lot of healthcare matters from BIA's perspective, along with a lot of you who are our partners on a day-to-day basis. And so I really look forward to this discussion, especially in light of the healthcare workforce crisis that we are facing. And I fully acknowledge that, appreciate that, and look forward to this conversation to identify ways that we can attract more folks into the industry, make sure we have the pathways for them to advance and to really address the critical need of this sector, like I said, not only today, but in the future as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Christy. And Stephanie Samuel, who will be joining us momentarily, she's helping move people to the breakout rooms, is our program manager from the Council of County Colleges and will be working with us. I think we have a steady number of people in the room, so I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping rules before we get into the panel. And so I'm really excited about the panel that we have today. The individuals you're going to hear from have unique and diverse perspectives on the workforce needs of this healthcare industry. Their comments are meant to inform and inspire further discussion and thinking. I think we're already have our thinking caps on from this morning's multi-industry panel. So I'm really looking forward to this. And we ask that you use the chat function, offering your own perspective on the issues being discussed. At the end, after we get through the questions, we may have some time to entertain questions from you as well, but all the comments that are going to be put in the chat, all the questions will be saved and will be used to inform our collaboratives and centers of workforce innovation. These breakout sessions are truly the launch of our industry collaboratives. The collaboratives will be starting our monthly meetings in February to build our education ecosystem and to allow us, to learn more about industry trends, promising education and training strategies and partnerships, and to inform the development of the statewide strategic education and workforce plans that we will be developing. So today's session will help us identify issues and themes to explore in greater depth in future collaborative meetings. Just a few quick housekeeping rules. Please remain muted. Please type your questions and comments in the chat and we'll get to them as time permits. And we'll be receiving warnings as the time goes on. We have an hour in this session, so I want to get started. I know we're not pinned and spotlighted yet, but I think in the interest of time, I do want to get started. So at this time, I would really like to introduce our industry partners and panel. So let's start with Matthew DiBartolomeo, from the Manager of Academic Relations from Hackensack Meridian Health.
Thank you, Sandra. As Sandra mentioned, my name is Matthew Bartolomeo. I'm the Manager of Academic Relations for Hackensack Meridian Health. Great to see everyone today. Just to give a brief background about my position and just about myself, my main role at Hackensack Meridian is really to partner with our various recruitment areas to develop and implement strategy for developing a talent pipeline for all of our different areas, whether it's nursing, allied health, hospitality, corporate, and really trying to fill those entry-level or early career positions that we have. I also coordinate many different internships, mainly non-clinical internships like IT, finance, and marketing. So that's really the crux of what I do at Hackensack Meridian Health. So I attend a lot of career fairs, hold a lot of info sessions, that sort of thing. One thing I should mention is I come from the higher ed industry. Before joining Hackensack Meridian about 5 years ago. I have about 10 years of higher ed experience in admissions, enrollment management. And so I can offer kind of a unique perspective in terms of, the higher ed side of things and also the employer side of things. So I'm looking forward to really a great discussion today and meeting every one of you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us, Matt. Let's move on to Lourdes. I know you were where are you, Lourdes? Lourdes Valdez, she's the Corporate Director of Workforce Development and Grants at RWJ Barnabas Health. You were here, Lourdes.
Sorry. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me now? Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here and sharing a little bit of what we are doing and how we are trying to create talent pipelines, address vacancies right now. Everybody, Sandra alluded to that. So part of my responsibility is to create career pathways and career ladders to our employees through grants and through other funding resources. Currently, we have over 1,000 of our employees in our programs where they are upskilling and filling those positions that are currently vacant. So we're very excited to be here and share a little bit of what we do. So thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Lourdes. And next we have, I'm working on my pins here. We have Robert Clay, who's the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Mental Health Association in New Jersey.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. This is a very exciting opportunity just to be with a whole bunch of new people that we haven't really seen too much. It's really important that the pandemic has brought out the importance of mental health and mental wellness into the broader healthcare field and on the broader community. So it's a great opportunity for us. I've been with the Mental Health Association for about 35 years and have had a lot of different experiences in looking, and our association looks at things from a policy perspective, from developing the clinical workforce, as well as the non-clinical workforce. And that's really one of the areas I think is a very important growth area that this project fits right on target. Our association has pioneered from 30 years ago the development of the peer workforce, people with lived experience of mental health and addiction and becoming healthcare providers, working in the field to support recovery in the community. It's a whole new industry that's developing, as we all know, especially with caregivers taking a more active role. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us to see some real significant changes in the healthcare system by the growing and the stackable credentials, all the wonderful things that we've heard to really build career opportunities and a non-clinical support role in behavioral health. So we're looking forward to being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. And then our fourth panelist is Lauren Frary. She is the Executive Director at the ARC of Somerset County.
Hi, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. My introduction is going to be a little bit different from my colleagues in that I bring a bit of a unique perspective to the workforce and career path initiatives that we're all working towards. I am a county college student who started at county college because I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself, as most 19 to 21-year-olds are like. Did some work at the county college and transferred into Rutgers University, where I received my bachelor's, and then went on to Montclair University for my master's degree. My work life and I can honestly say that I actually had a career path and a journey. I started with the ARC of Somerset County in 1990. I'll let you do the math. And started in an entry-level position. I was a direct support professional working in a group home and have spent the last 32 years at the organization working my way in and around various positions. And for the last 15 years, I've actually been the executive director of the ARC of Somerset County. So from, county college to four-year university to a workforce pathway, I have a very unique perspective on our employees who are kind of coming in at entry level and really want to have the education, the knowledge, the experience to move through an organization and achieve success. And just a quick word about the ARC, for those of you who don't know, the ARC is a national, actually it's an international organization. It is the largest and oldest organization that serves people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Currently, the ARC has over 700 chapters across the United States. So wherever you go, there's an ARC to support you and your family if you have a member with a disability. It's also significant because in New Jersey, there are about 30,000 DSPs, entry-level positions, That is a significant piece of the workforce. So it's just important to note that these positions working with folks with disabilities are extremely vital, and will continue to be vital going into the future. Sorry for taking so much time.
No, thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you. And now you can see why I'm so excited about our panel here today. So the discussion that we're going to talk about is focused on how to address industry needs through this rapidly changing environment. How can education be responsive? What are the solutions that we can, come up with together and collaborate on? So without any more time wasted, I want to go right into our questions, and so we can hear from our panelists. Let me just change my view here so that, okay, here we are. So our first question, really talking about current and future workforce trends and challenges, building upon what we heard earlier today. What is your most critical workforce development need in this moment as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic? Matt, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. I would say there are so many different types of needs, whether it's in allied health, for instance, diagnostic imaging is a huge need for us, X-ray techs, MRI techs, mammography techs, also respiratory therapists. We always have a huge need for that. And I'm sure Lourdes can really speak on that as well. We have so many openings for respiratory therapists in each of our 17 hospitals throughout the state that's a critical need, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic for the last couple of years now. Also paramedics, those are important to us as well. And again, I'm just talking about allied health, right? Obviously nursing is always a huge need for us, new graduate nurses, also nursing support. So we actually just started a new program for nursing support positions, and that's called Earn While You Learn. And it's really for nursing students who finish their fundamentals of nursing courses. They would be eligible to apply for a patient care technician or a patient observer role. And they would be going through just a one-day orientation instead of like a 4 or 5 day orientation. So that's really a big help for them because it kind of conflicts with their classes if they have that long orientation time. So nursing support is also a huge need for us. And last but not least, hospitality and support services. So I'm thinking patient transport, I'm thinking food services, environmental services. Those are incredibly important positions, especially during COVID, but also, outside of COVID, before the pandemic occurred. So really setting the foundation and helping out in the hospitals as much as you can in those hospitality roles are crucial. And they're also a really great way for people who are thinking about going into healthcare to really be exposed to the healthcare environment, right? To learn how hospitals work, to network and connect with other people. So it's a really great, almost first job entryway into healthcare. So, I think the short answer is we have needs for everything. But, there are more critical needs than others, such as in the allied health field, nursing support and hospitality.
Thanks, Matt.
I would like to add that I agree with Matt and everything that he said. And understanding also that we have physician practices. It's not only what it is going on within the hospital, but it's also those outpatient physician practices, locations that also need that support. And COVID has certainly impacted them. So we currently have a program where we have internal employees, our own employees, going through a training program for certified medical assistants. And what we are doing with that is that they're being paid as they're training. So upfront is that training, and we're making sure that they are being supported through the process. We also need patient services representatives. Many times we don't think about that. Well, that's great. We are working with our one-stops, and we're working with the colleges to create classes to bring patient services representatives on board. So we hire them before they're trained. So we are hiring and making sure that we're creating talent pipelines and filling positions that way. So we've had to become very creative during COVID, and with our the number of vacancies that we have, which I will not mention, but I'm sure that Matt understands too what that means. And just being able to be flexible, being able to look at people based on skills, being able to be creative in our recruitment process, and to be open to maybe different type of candidate that we may have, that we consider, and being open to training, being open to development, being open to bringing them and making sure that they assimilate well to our culture. So it is a very hard time, but it's also a very exciting time for us.
Yes, definitely. We've definitely had to shift it, not only in healthcare, but many industry sectors have had to shift a lot of models of hiring and training during this COVID-19 pandemic. Lauren, did you want to add to?
Yeah, so I think, from my perspective, I think that one of our most critical workforce development needs is really to start looking at our workforce in terms of making sure we're recruiting and training people who can move into management positions. I think that we really want our entry-level folks to understand that there is truly a pathway, that there truly is opportunities for growth and development. And especially if we partner with our community colleges on certificate and associate and maybe even bachelor programs, that certainly provides them a ladder to get there.
Great, thank you. And Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to throw in a couple pieces just in the whole behavioral health industry and the community industry, because it's a very changing industry for mental health and behavioral health. COVID has just changed the dynamic of the organization so much, shifting to virtual care. Obviously, we've all done that. What that means in the sense of what patient care can be, what kind of therapy, what kind of services can be, the quality of services that can be delivered. So what's really happening right now to the mental health, behavioral health world is a big shift of where people are working. Lots of turmoil of new job openings, people leaving to working virtual. The introductory of the public systems, I think, are a lot weaker now than they've ever been before, because there's new partners coming in. There's new competition coming in. There are private companies coming into behavioral health. The large mergers of the hospital systems are really changing the dynamic, and the workforce is changing that way too. People that were no longer 5 years ago were not in large demand for jobs. If you have a certain kind of clinical degree, you're very highly in demand now. So there's a big shift of where people are working. So that's something that the industry is going on. There's got to be some development of new ways to get more clinical services involved. But at the same time, because the demand is so much greater, the demand on the systems has been huge, as in the physical healthcare has done the same in the emotional healthcare world. The other area that we're very involved in is that non-clinical support services. We think that's becoming very, very critical. People need to have the supports they need to recover, to be supported. They need the clinical services, but they need community navigation systems support. They need levels of advocacy support, case management support. Those things are really critical. And we felt that there's a huge area that has been developing is that people with lived experience, how they can become really vital in this new area of really that non-clinical support. And there's lots of training, there's lots of opportunities for that, but it's much in the infant stages. So I think this is a really exciting opportunity that we can look at this in a holistic way across the entire industry, on how to really engage peers, people in recovery, from mental illness, behavioral health services, physical illnesses, to really become effective caregivers and part of our non-clinical supports in the community.
That's great. Thank you, Bob. We wanted to make sure that behavioral health was included in this, right? As as we move forward, traditionally, I think that we don't think about that in those pathways, right? And you make a very good point. And especially after COVID and with our community college students also, behavioral health has become so important.
And Sandra, does it make sense too, as we continue the conversation, certainly in the interest of time too, to not only discuss how technology influences the workforce training needs, but to also kind of transition into what those hiring needs are and where those skills gaps maybe exist, so that we can better inform our education partners on the line as well. And folks, please keep being active in the chat. It seems like our speakers are definitely trying to address them in your in their comments. So please keep it coming. So does anybody want to chime in on the influence of technology, and what are those educational gaps that we need to be aware of to adjust curriculum?
So if you don't mind, I will gladly start.
Thanks, Laura.
Through COVID and through being online and changing how we deliver not only healthcare, but how we deliver also training and development for our employees, it's extremely important that the word flexibility is there. So being able to make sure that we are flexible within our own technology and being able to use technology the right way to provide training and to be able to keep also internally with that need. When COVID first started, I'll give you an example. We were in the middle of a tremendous amount of training, and we were lucky that we were able to transition into hybrid programs, online programs. The colleges were superb, fantastic at allowing that to happen. And we were able to deliver with I would say with hiccups, with difficulties, but always working together to make sure that that delivery of training continued. That cannot stop. Being able to also update, make sure our employees were technologically savvy to be able to go and receive that training. So that's a skills gap that we had, just basic computer knowledge. Some of our employees did not have that. And to be able to provide that with them, also provide them with laptops, computers, so they will be able to go to and attend courses. We also had to teach a little etiquette. How do you sit in a classroom? In a classroom, how does that work? How do you sit through a meeting? How do you communicate through a platform like Zoom or GoToMeetings? So that is something that that we look at as a basic, in general, as basic knowledge for any new hire that we have in place. So we look for that knowledge in our candidates. What are your basic computer skills? Because this is really what is happening nowadays, and that is a need that we have. And as our previous speaker was saying, we have to start looking when we are hiring at life experience. Even though they are in allied health and in certain positions, we do need that. We have to maintain our regulations, what is required by regulatory bodies, what is needed to be an RN or a certified nursing assistant. But we also are looking, besides that, we're also looking at other skills. How is this person able to learn? When we interview, what is their previous life experience? How do we connect that to the needs that we have now? And also teaching hiring managers to look at that candidate as as a viable and a very strong candidate. So that has been some of the work that we have been doing due to the changes of COVID and looking at the huge gaps that now we have within workforce. You know, it also has, and I'm sure everyone in this panel agrees, we've all looked at our compensation rates, you know, to make sure that we are competitive and that we are online with what really is out there. But, you know, also being able to see the candidate, the person in front of us, looking at the skills they have in life, being able to assess, is this person a learner? Are we going to be able to put them in training programs? So there are a lot of things that we're looking beyond our regular competencies. We're looking at skills and we're looking at life experience also.
Yeah, so Laura, and to continue that with our panel, again, having some of our education partners, you know, 2-year, 4-year and private schools on, you know, Matt, Lauren, Bob, you know, what else, what other advice can you give to them from what you're seeing? Where are those gaps existing? We heard Laura's talk a lot about technology and some of the essential skills to be able to learn. Anything that's missing?
So I would
Yeah,
say
so-
from my
sorry.
perspective, and I agree with Lords, I mean, I think the pandemic, if there are any silver linings, it has taught organizations, both private and not-for-profit, how to be a little bit more efficient. And I think that that's going to bring with it some permanent changes. So certainly for us, you know, training is now done online. And onboarding with your HR staff is done online. So when you have entry-level staff who are fearful of technology, it makes for a very difficult onboarding recruitment strategy. So I think I agree with Lourdes. Some basic computer skills are certainly huge gaps. I also think that, so we're all using Zoom these days, and there are very creative ways to use technology to do the work. Right. So we did a lot of virtual programming with our adults with disabilities because we couldn't bring in the yoga instructor or the art instructor. So our staff had to learn how to use technology, not only for kind of the business end of your work, but for the programmatic end of your work. And I think that there are definitely gaps in both of those areas.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And, you know, just like what Lourdes and what Lauren mentioned, you know, just being onboarded, right? You know, filling out your direct deposit, filling out other things, going through introductory e-learnings as a new hire, you know, that's all been done virtually now. I will say in terms of other educational skills gaps, and I'll say maybe not gaps, but more recommendations for students who recently graduated who are going into the work world is, you know, communication is huge. And I will say I'm an advocate for 2 communication-based courses while they're still in school. And one is organizational communication, you know, learning more about how an organization works. How does, you know, what are the systems in place for an organization? How do organizations approach communicating to their employees? Is it top down? Is it more of a human relations type of communication? And the second course is obviously public speaking. How do you present yourself, right? How do you develop that elevator pitch during an interview? How do you conduct yourself? I think Lourdes mentioned before, during meetings, right? So I think that those are also important educational skills recommendations that I certainly would have. And Lourdes also mentioned being flexible, being adaptable, right? Especially during this time. The more real world experiences that you have, right, whether through internship or through part-time jobs, I think the better off you will be, because you faced certain challenging environments, right, where you had to maybe think on your feet a little bit, right? Maybe when you didn't have all the answers, how do you find out what those answers are? So, you know, having that experience is incredibly important, especially in this time when we're not even sure what tomorrow is going to bring us, right? So that's important as well.
I would agree 100% with Matt on the communication skills, because as a father of someone who's just graduating college and someone who's just in the mental health world now, a lot of the folks just don't come there. You know, your communication is through this thing, you know, as we all know, and there's great value to that, but it's not the one-to-one communication of really developing a relationship with something that's not involving, you know, a 10-second video about a cat or, you know, a TikTok. So really to understand how you interact in a work community is a really, really important piece. I see that as something that's just a really important piece that's across the board in communication. I think in the area that I'm, you know, focusing a little bit more about is that people may understand the book knowledge, but they don't really know how to apply it. And I think when we're talking about behavioral health issues and dealing with people, that's experience. That unless you have got some really incredible natural skills, and there are people out there who do that, you can't be taught it on a PowerPoint. You have to experience it. So I think there has to be a much greater emphasis on the internship process, the apprenticeship process. We don't really talk about that much until you get to the higher degrees, you know, in behavioral health. But I think that's just a really important piece. The more that people can see and experience real life situations, understand their communities, understand the diversity of their communities, that's a really important part of a curriculum. And those things need to be, you know, a stackable kind of process that people can work through.
And you're all describing, actually, Chrissy put it in the chat, our workplace literacy and basic skills program through NJBIA, which focuses on those basic skills and workplace communication and leadership. And so there is a link to that. And as we move forward, building these pathways, that's a piece that we need to include, right? As I hear it all the time, that when we want to promote someone, they have the technical skills, but they're missing those leadership skills or the HR related functions. So it's important for us to discuss that, because as we're thinking and talking about pathways, it is critical that we give people the tools to move along to the next, building those stackable credentials, giving them this workplace literacy training and basic skills training as well. And so when we think of basic skills, you know, it's not just for entry-level people, right? Our entry-level employees, and it builds retention and trust. And so I think a natural transition, as I'm thinking about it, talking about training that's offered in the workplace right now that we can incorporate into our academic programs, because one of the goals of these pathways and this curriculum design and embedding credentials is taking some of the work that you're doing, right? And embedding that into our pathways. Lourdes, and Lauren, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the training first that you offer in your workplace.
So I think it's really important for industries to look at what their industry specific training programs are and how that can be translated into possibly some type of college credit or credential. I actually have a second job. I am an adjunct at Raritan Valley Community College, so I understand very well what our students need and what they're lacking. But I can tell you that from our industry, and I know that this is true in many industries, we have kind of required trainings to do this particular job as a direct support professional. And it is provided in New Jersey, it's provided through what's called the College of Direct Supports. And every single employee who holds that job title has to complete a certain number of these classes. It's statewide requirement through the Boggs Center. It would be great if we could talk to a county college and say, let's look at this bundle of trainings. Can we create a certificate around that? Can we create credit around that? So it's transferable into the next step, be it a certificate in human services or an associate's degree. But I think we all organically have these training programs that could very easily translate into some kind of college curriculum or credit. So like I said, the Boggs Center also has, or there's actually also a National Alliance for DSPs, and they actually have a national certification. So again, just a great opportunity to take something that already exists and translate it into some kind of pathway into an academic setting.
Yeah, through our mental health association, some of our colleagues, there are a number of certifications for people that have lived experience, that to get certifications for mental health, addiction, wellness, tobacco, education, gambling. There's a whole slew of those that are really designed for the non-clinical support role. There could very easily be, I think, just picking up what Lauren said, other kinds of training that we also have that could be developed and stackable to be part of definitely an associate's degree, if not higher. Plus, there's a lot of experiential kinds of things in the community that are really kind of critical that are not necessarily going to happen in a community college setting. That could be applied and created some kind of pathway that can be replicated, because right now they're either in one siloed industry, or they are one geographic location. Or sometimes it's both things. New Jersey, how great we are in siloing everybody. I think that this project has the opportunity of coming together with some core competencies, core certifications, whatever we want to call that. It's something that could be offered throughout the entire network of the community college system.
Can I add something? I think the most important thing we need to do is to educate. I think there's a lack of knowledge in many ways of what, and I will say this, and I'll give you a concrete example. We are partnered with the Consortium of Colleges, and we have provided direct access to our employees to the CCOG grant, where they apply, we walk them through them, we hold their hands, but many of them are looking, I want to be an RN. I want to be an RN. And there are so many fields in behavioral health, as you shared, and in education. There's a plethora of opportunities. And that will, believe it or not, benefit healthcare. We hire for everything. I say we hire attorneys, we hire engineers, let's not talk about mental health workers and psychologists and case managers and physicians. But one of the things that I've noticed that there is a lot, and this is what I hope, and this is what I heard Aaron speak about, and this is what I'm excited about this, is the ability to educate our communities on what career pathways are out there. I think there's very little knowledge, and many people start with an idea, oh, I'm going to be an RN. And somehow when they see, well, this is not for me, they drop from the face of the earth. They drop from the learning environment, and it's very hard to capture them again. So it is important that we are constantly educating through the schools, through the grammar schools, through the high schools, through workforce development boards, through our employers, to teach, to educate employees and the community and what available programs there are out there. And I think the colleges are critical and providing this and supporting students. And I'm hoping through this program, we will be able to do that and bring more exposure to different careers within healthcare or within any industry. And I know this is what it is, but to open the eyes and of our community members, of our students, of our employees, of what they can achieve.
A quick question now, Mitra, we haven't heard from you much, but I know you put a comment in the chat. And before I ask a wrap-up question and still welcome any questions for the panelists via the chat, could you also just comment on what you wrote regarding making sure we keep the employee at also the forefront, like look at things from their perspective? Do you want to elaborate on that a bit further, please?
Sure. We always look at what the employer wants, but employees, because of the plethora of, opportunities that they have to keep an employee in the organization, I think it's important that we also give them a voice. How do they want to hear what the employer wants? So is there a line of communication for that? Then a whole new generation of employees are coming into the workforce. They don't think or act like us. I'm going to date myself. So but I listen, to the younger generation, like my son's generation. They think very differently. So what are we doing from an employer's end when we market an opportunity to the employee? How are we marketing it? Like Lourdes said, that RWJ provides training. So you have a pathway. Lauren mentioned the pathway. So, I think those are some of the things that we need to market to the employer. Also, when we are communicating with them, how do they communicate with us? What are we expecting them to, so I don't know. I think we need clear expectations from both ends. When we market a job opportunity, we also need to market the opportunities that come with that. So maybe talk more about the career pathways that you can become a direct professional, like Lauren said, and then, move them up. We need to use employee success stories. If there's a good employee that worked their way up the ladder, use them. And I know that Lourdes has used some of them in her information sessions, because we work with Lourdes on some of providing the training. But, I think we need to think outside the box. We cannot be in that same box anymore. And even if we are in that box, we have to wiggle around that box. Because I know hospitals and, mental health associations and anybody that works with, individuals that need care have a lot of regulations. I totally understand that. But I think that, it's a new generation, a new way of thinking. And I'm glad that we are all in this same conversation, because I think we need to hear both sides of the story. And maybe at some point, and I don't know if this is feasible in these centers of excellence, Sandra, we are part of it, but I would like to bring in a student. I would like to bring in an employee and, make them part of the conversation, or bring in a high school student, because sometimes it starts there. Because if you go to a high school and say, hey, do you want to be a direct care professional? They're going to say, what is that? Do you want to work for a mental health association? They have no idea what kind of jobs are even available and where it can lead to, like even a healthcare administrator, like those are big jobs. You can make a ton of money. I wish I knew when I was younger, I'd probably taken a different path, probably be rich by now. But, it's like no information and no knowledge, or little knowledge and little information is not good. I think we need to provide as much information and as much knowledge as we can. And maybe, this is a statewide platform. I think it's a good opportunity for us to utilize both sides of the table. That's what I meant by that comment.
Thank you. That's Matt, please chime in before I ask my last question to wrap us up.
I'll be quick, but Mitra, I absolutely agree with everything you said. And, we mentioned the educational skills gaps that students may have. Also, us as employers, we need to do better in communicating with this new generation coming into the workforce. And I think that we can do that in a variety of ways. One way is through employee resource groups. We call them team member resource groups. One of those groups that we have at Hackensack Meridian is a young professionals resource group. So we can do better in really listening to what they have to say, what suggestions, what recommendations do they have? And another thing that we do is we offer a lot of educational programs, to our current employees. One example is we just recently had a cohort of employees earn their certification from the Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM certification, either a certified professional, or the senior employees, they get the senior certified professional. So, and it went through our tuition reimbursement program. So things like that are important to expand upon. But I agree, really listening to what students and what the new generation of employees have to say are crucial to really making sure that that they're in as good of an environment as possible when they're really just starting out their career.
So as we wrap up, and those are great points, we have our education ecosystem obviously on the line here with us today. So from industry's perspective, how can our education partners be as responsive to, the technological, the workforce development needs of the future? What would you impart upon them as we close out today? Does anybody want to jump in?
I will. I think one of, again, and this is already organically in many of the colleges, I think one of the things we want to look at is really expanding service learning, internship, fieldwork opportunities in all degrees, in all areas, and for all types of organizations. I know a lot of times people think about internships and fieldwork as a kind of a social worky thing, right? But my experience as a professor has taught me that when you get students into these environments and situations, they're going to learn one of two things. They're going to learn, wow, I love this. This is a place I want to go. This is a path I want to take. Or they're going to learn, whoops, I don't like this at all. Both learnings are extremely valuable, right? And so I think that requiring some sort of internship and field work not only helps the student understand what they need, but helps the organization understand the types of students that are going to be coming our way in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Lauren. I completely agree with you. But as an employer, I also have a caveat, and there's a little bit of a disconnect between employers and schools when it comes to internship opportunities. And I hope this is what career pathways can do for us, because some experiences have not been positive with internships and with other sources of having students roll through. I think we really need to go back to the blackboard and see how we can design a better way of communicating this to employers. As educators, as we are educators, we see the value behind it, but it's also how do we, and how do the schools, and how do we communicate with employers and bring to employers the great resource that internships are and students are. Is it a waste of their time? What risk are they taking? Who are they bringing in? Is this something that, that is going to be at the end, something that's fruitful for us? So I think there's a lot of work that still needs to happen. I completely agree with you. But sitting in human resources, which is where I sit, I also see their point of view. And really, this is a great forum where we are to create those relationships and looking at new approaches.
Yeah, Loris, can you, and somebody else might want to chime in here, you mentioned the word disconnect between employer and education partner on that experiential learning opportunity. Can we just expand upon that too as we close out? What exactly are you referring to? Because I have something obviously ingrained in my head from my experience, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and others.
Okay, so there are opportunities, but there is not enough opportunities for all sort of how could I say, fields, for all fields where we want to provide that experiential opportunity, right? So as I speak, and I'm sitting in, and I speak to various deans of different schools, including in nursing, and they have serious concerns with clinicals. And we're talking also about, I have a group for medical lab technicians. Do we have enough opportunities to provide every medical lab technician that comes out from a school to rotate through us? And it's the number, and it's our own capacity, right? So it's a capacity of, do we as employers see the value behind doing this, right? And we do. many of us do, to what sort of investment, because when we bring an intern, and when we run, we give that experiential, there is somebody that has to be responsible for that, you know, within a healthcare system, within, I don't know, Matt, do you agree with me? Because you're an expert at that. So we need to see somehow how we benefit, how we bring that, because as Lauren was speaking, we're talking about an extensive amount of that. So we offer that for behavioral health. They need that people skill, that one-on-one that needs to be developed. How do we develop that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Matt, do you want to chime in?
Through experiential learning, and just the organization have the capacity to do that. And what is the, you know, and also the benefit that they see. So how many of these interns are they, you know, we are helping New Jersey, we're bringing them out, yes, you know, but, you know, there also has to be a benefit for the organization in that
Yeah.
sense. And sometimes I think there's a disconnect with that.
And
Does that make sense? Am I
I
wrong,
do
Matt?
agree in a sense, right? Yeah, because there is a capacity issue, and there's also an issue with certain departments that they just don't have the bandwidth, right, to host students because of certain, you know, work that they do. I see internships, as I'm sure many of you probably do, as really mutually beneficial, right? Obviously beneficial to the student to gain that experience, to further their education. We absolutely want that to happen, but we also, from our standpoint, we bring in interns to see, you know, is this a great fit for the organization, and can this be a future leader within that department, right? Or at least can this be a future team member, right? Once they graduate and they earn the proper credential, right? So really making sure that we're all absolutely aware of those two things. We want to provide the best experience possible for the students while we host them, and we also want to see if this student, would this be a great person within the organization where they can really, you know, set up a great career, a great launch pad for them to work with us for years, decades to come, right? And to advance along the way, whether they are an associate, to a manager, to a director, to a vice president, so on and so forth, right? So we want to make sure that there is that almost like a balance in a way, from that it's at the advantage of both the student and the organization, and also the school as well. The school is obviously a huge partner in this process, and everything that they do is really integral. So yeah.
We have 24 seconds left. So do Lauren or Bob have one last, thank you so much, everyone, though. I want to thank everyone because this has been a wonderful discussion. I feel like the hour just flew by.
I would just say strategically on the internships, I think we have to really look at it because it's really important for both sides, but there's definitely some disconnects of resources and time and value to it. The other thing is I think all the great training and certifications that are in the community that are being done by organizations, by professional associations, by whatever, need to connect into our education system some way, so that we have some more continuity built in here.
I think that, you know, as we just go back into the main room, that's exactly why we're all here today, is to figure out how to build all of these experiences into, you know, credits, credentials and stuff. So I think we hit the nail on the head here. Great conversation. So we'll see you in the main room, and please stay very, very involved in the healthcare component of this initiative. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great. Thank you so much, especially to our panelists.
Thanks for having us.
See you in
Bye, guys.
the main room. Thank you.